The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Kalshi. Make real money predicting sports. Costs available in every state. Get 10 bucks for free. Resign with the code SGPN. That's Kalshi, promo code SGPN. And welcome, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Currently Sunday night, March 29th, around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm as always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the breakdown of the three upcoming ATP events for the next week. So we have three clay events. Officially clay season, so looking forward to it. But either way, we do have a couple of 250s that are worth talking about. One in Bucharest, one in Marrakech, and one in Houston. So we're going to break down all three of those events in a few minutes. Before we get into the actual breakdown of the three outrights for those events, a reminder, support the show by liking, subscribing on YouTube. Also find the podcast on Spotify or Apple. So once again, a couple ways to actually consume the podcast, but either way, leave a rating and a review on Spotify and Apple, and leave a like, subscribe on YouTube to help the channel grow in both areas. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store. We have a lot of great tennis merchandise on the merch store for SGPN. So check out the website for shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, all that fun stuff. Same as usual. Once again, think you like the selection. Check it out. Plus, a reminder, before we actually get into any of the recap of the last episode, which was a bit dated, to be honest, baseball's back. And so is the MLB Gambling Podcast, a show that I'm also on, a daily picks podcast breaking down all the MLB action. Get in on the action. And a reminder, get it on the SGPN app, wherever you do get your podcast, YouTube, Spotify, or of course the SGPN app, free to download. So starting off the recap of the last episode, which was the quarterfinals in Miami. So we ended up splitting. For the lock, nice and easy. We had Leheshka team total over 12.5 minus 140 against Londalucci. Never in doubt, ended up winning 7-6, 7-5. But once he won the first set in a breaker, it was really never a doubt. So nice, easy win there for the lock. For the dog, bit of a heartbreaker, but not really, to be honest. We had Fees minus 1.5 games against Paul at even money. Fees did have a match point with a second serve from Paul. If he converted it, we would have won, but he didn't convert it, and eventually he did win the match, but he won in 3 sets, all tie breaks. So Fees did win, but unfortunately he did not cover the spread. However, it's really not that bad of a beat because Paul was up 40-love in that service game before he eventually blew it and gave Fees a match point. So not really a bad beat, but there was one match point where if Fees would have won it, we would have swept. So it is what it is, but either way, Fees won, didn't cover the spread, picked up a loss there for the dog. Now, we have to fast forward a bit because that was the quarterfinals. The semis ended up happening. We didn't talk about it either. I was away, so apologies I couldn't record an episode. And for the final, I could have recorded an episode, but Sinner was minus 2,000 against Leheshka. So no point in talking about it. And what do you know? Sinner did win another 1,000 title without dropping a set. He extends his streak of consecutive matches won in 1,000 events without dropping a set. So he's a complete machine. And of course, we gave him out to win the event at plus 140. Once again, the same strategy as always. If Sinner and Alcaraz are both in the same event, take Alcaraz, take Sinner, and take nobody else. I keep repeating the same exact, I'd say, quote or same exact speech every time we do this post-tournament because one of them always wins. So another win for Sinner, never in doubt, never dropped a set. And once again, he was able to win comfortably in the final on Sunday against Leheshka. Props to Leheshka, who will now be a top 15 player in the world for the first time in his career. Pretty straightforward. Sinner won 6-4, 6-4. He only faced 3 break points, but they were all in one game. So besides one tight service game, Sinner was able to hold comfortably for the rest of the match, and Leheshka was just not able to keep up. So once again, Leheshka, good job by him, made a good run. But Sinner was going to destroy him pretty much any day of the week, and that happened again on Sunday. The only drama was the weather, because there were a couple of interruptions at a late start because, of course, it always rains in Florida. But either way, Sinner eventually was able to complete the match en route to a straight-set win. So another outright win for us. Yeah, I'm not going to victory lap it too much. Once again, Sinner-Alcaraz strategy is undefeated, and we're going to try to keep it rolling here for the upcoming 3 events. So nothing else to really talk about. Moving on into the 3 outrights. Now, I do want to point out, by the way, we do have no quarter odds right now, so we're going to have to skip the quarters, but we do have actual title odds for all 3 events. So we're going to start off in chronological order with the first event starting on Monday, which is Bucharest. So we're going to go to Bucharest first. Recent winners, Kaboli ended up beating Baez in the final last year, and Fucsovics beat Navone the year prior. So there was a bit of a gap after those 2 years. Or before those 2 years, so I kind of skipped it. But either way, point is we have a pretty, I'd say, interesting collection of winners recently. I'd say 2 guys that were not exactly favorites according to the odds. And maybe we'll see if another long shot is able to win this event for the 3rd year in a row. Now, moving on to the actual outrights to win the event here in Bucharest. Starting off with the actual odds, Morozin is the favorite, which is insane to me. He's never won a title, but he's plus 450. Borges is 5-1, second favorite, which I know he did win a title. It was kind of a BS title where he faced off against Nadal's corpse in the final, and he was able to win. And then he injured his eye pouring champagne on himself, which was pretty funny. But either way, point is Borges, I think, is fine. He does have a clay title in his career years ago, but not exactly the most impressive ATP resume. But once again, those are the 2 favorites, so a pretty open tournament potentially, which can result in a little bit of, I'd say, shock as the event wears on. But Baez at 6-1, Diallo at 9-1, Altmaier 10-1. I know he's a good clay player, but Altmaier's been objectively horrific all season, so 10-1's pretty funny. Zandschulp's at 11-1. He's never won a title either. Navone 12-1. He's never won a title either. Shevchenko 16-1. I believe he's never won a title either. Arnaldi, I don't think he's won one either. Good at plus 2,000. Busta at plus 2,000. Prismic 25-1. Zoomer 25-1. Martinez 25-1. You have Manarino, who, by the way, is useless on clay, so keep that in mind. You will not be seeing me take Manarino on clay, and you get the point. So a couple of interesting faces and a pretty weak overall field. I'd say that it's pretty safe to say that Bucharest has the worst collection of talent for the entire week because a lot of good players in America stayed in Houston, even though it's not really clay, but it counts as clay, I guess. But I'd say that the overall talent, in my opinion, Marrakech is better than the talent here in Bucharest, but that can result in a couple of long shots who make respectable runs. Now, I said before, you had a bunch of guys at the top who've never won a title before. You're looking at Morozin, who's the favorite. He's never won. Altmaier, I don't believe has ever won either. Zandschulp's never won. Navone's never won. I don't think Shevchenko's won either. Arnaldi, I don't believe, has won either. So once again, you have a bunch of, I'd say, guys who might be looking to win their first career titles. So you can correct me down below if I am wrong, and maybe like Shevchenko or Arnaldi did win one, but I don't think they did. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But either way, point is a relatively weak field that can be open to opportunity. Now, looking at the actual draw, starting with Morozin, who is the favorite, his draw, I'll be honest, is really not that bad. So he has a bye, then Choinsky, or a qualifier, then either Altmaier or Martinez or Prismic. So that is definitely a very tough collection of players. Altmaier's 10-1. Martinez is 2-0 lifetime, and Martinez is a good clay player. That could be an upset, so I'm definitely not taking Altmaier. But do I think Morozin is guaranteed to cruise through the immediate section into the semis? No. Prismic, I think, has some clay talent. Still young, but I think that Martinez, if he's on, could beat Morozin. Altmaier, too, but he's been pretty bad this season. Prismic can, in theory, do it as well. So not really a fan of Morozin's draw, especially for this price at around plus 450. I am not interested in that price. Moving on to Borges, though, seeing if there's anybody that I think can be a threat to him. I don't think he's an amazing clay player. He's fine. He does have the Zoomer in the second round. I think he should win that. Same immediate section, though, as Zandschulp and Shevchenko. Borges probably should make it out of that section, but there is a chance Zandschulp, if he's on, can beat him. Top half does have Diallo, who is okay on clay. I'd say is not exactly amazing on it. Definitely not his best surface. So you can argue that Borges does have an actual path. Navone is in that top quarter, so if he actually gets a good draw against O'Connell in the first round, and we know that Navone is a former finalist here a couple years ago. So Navone actually could make a decent run, but the point is not exactly a lot of talent in the top half. So Borges being this cheap, I actually kind of understand, but it's still way too cheap for a guy of Borges' talent, or I should say, in my opinion, a lack thereof. And I do think that 5-1 is too cheap. So moving on to the guys I will be taking for the event. I got Baez at 6-1. I know that it was not exactly a great clay season for him. It's been kind of, I'd say, bizarro world for Baez this season, where he was actually good on a hard court. He made a final on hard court, and then kind of flamed out in the clay events. So a bit of a surprise there. Usually it was the reverse, but I think he'll get back on track here. Baez's draw is fine. Has Galvis in the first round, and either Agut or Droget. Same immediate section as Manarino, who is a free space as far as I'm concerned. Manarino getting a bye is hilarious because he's basically a walking loss on clay. So a great deal for Baez. Even though he doesn't have a bye, he does have Manarino, who's definitely the weakest of the bye players in this event. So based on that, I think Baez should cruise into the semis, in my opinion. He has the same exact half as Morozin. I think Morozin might lose, so we'll see what happens there. But I got to go Baez. He made the final here last year. He did lose to Gaboli. 6-1, I'm shocked he's not favored. I think that he definitely should be the favorite. I get that you're looking at Morozin and you're looking at Borges, and both of them do have buys. So there is one less match for both of them to play by comparison. But Baez is definitely the best clay player in terms of resume in this field. And for that reason, I'm taking him at 6-1. I think it's an insane price. I think he should be closer to 350, in my opinion. I'll take him at 6-1 as my first choice. Now, I said before, a bunch of the favorites have never won a title before on the ATP. Borges did win one in Sweden a couple years ago. A couple of weird circumstances, but still, a win's a win. I am going to go Navone at 13-1. I still really like his game on clay. Pure clay specialist. He really can't serve. It's a problem. But Bucharest, according to the actual databases I was researching on, it does say that Bucharest is the slowest court of the entire ATP season. So you're looking at what should be a serving display that's pretty underwhelming from basically everybody, and rally tolerance is going to be very key to winning. Now, I know Baez does have firepower, but he's also a very good clay guy. Gaboli solid on clay. He has some firepower too. But Fucsovics and Navone made the final here before. So once again, you're looking at Argentinians who've been pretty good in the past making finals. 13-1 is really not that bad. He's in the same same section as Diallo. And Diallo, I don't think is really a great clay player. And if once again the courts are going to play so slow, I think Diallo's, I'd say, rally tolerance is going to hurt him in this match. So I actually like Navone in a matchup against Diallo on these courts in Bucharest. Same half as Borges and Dzanchulp. I think he could take either of those guys, and I think that Navone at 13-1 is a very solid clay player. I know that the clay results on the ATP level have not been amazing. He's also had some really, really tough draws early in clay tournaments recently, which I feel like is annoying, and I've noticed it because I want to take Navone to win quarters, etc. But it feels like he's matched up against like Baez all the time in the first match, and he just loses immediately. So I'm happy Navone actually has a pretty decent draw this time around in a very weak field. But I think he's better than O'Connell on clay. So I think Navone has some value for 13-1. I think Navone and Baez, I'll go for the Argentinians. I think they're solid rally guys. I think that they're obviously clay specialists. But Baez, I do know for a fact he's comfortable here in Bucharest. He made the final here last year, and the fact is he should be pissed off because he had an awful clay slate when we were back in Rio and Buenos Aires, etc. He didn't win anything, so I'm hoping that he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to actually win a clay title. But either way, I think that Baez at 6-1 and Navone at 13-1 are the best available, in my opinion, deals. Now, for long shots, I didn't really have any. I don't trust Bustos' health. Agut, I think, is just too up there in year, especially on clay. Martinez at 25-1 would have intrigued me, but Altmaier in round one is a very tough draw. I think Martinez is actually quite live to win that match, but the point is Martinez's draw is really not great. If he had a better draw, I would have taken him because he is a solid clay player. But with that draw, I can't do it. So I don't really have a long shot. I think that it's going to be, in my opinion, either Baez or Navone, who are 6-1 and 13-1 respectively, but nothing that's that amazing in terms of long shot price. Moving on to Marrakech. Before we get into the preview of that event, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is Kalshi. Real money prediction market available in a ton of states, tons of options for trading on your favorite sports, including tennis. So once again, check out the platform. If you're new, get $10 when you sign up and use the code SGPN. That's Kalshi promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Arnold Fantasy. They cover the pick entries for almost every sport, including tennis. They also increased their payouts recently. 2 pick entries on a 3.5x and 3 pick entries on a 6.5x. So check that out. And a reminder, if you are new to the platform, play $5, get $50 bonus funds. We sign up at Earnlog with promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the Hour in Bucharest. Time to move on into Marrakech. So for this one, recent winners, Darderi beat Greek Sport last year in 2 tiebreaks, as he had a great run there. I remember we had Greek Sport to win the whole thing, and he lost in the final. But it turns out Darderi is actually insane on clay. So I guess that loss aged well for Greek Sport. At the time, we were annoyed. But either way, Darderi did win the event last year in 2 breakers. Berrettini did beat Baena. A reminder, that was the year that we backed Berrettini blindly in back-to-back clay events, and he won. So Berrettini was on the warpath, and he was able to beat Baena in the final. Baena did beat Muller in a battle of Cinderellas the year before that, and Goffin beat Mulcan, very dated, before that. So a bit of balance between overall firepower and consistency, with Darderi, Greek Sport, and Berrettini making the final, and 2 of them winning. But then you had Baena who won, Muller made a final, Mulcan made a final. So once again, kind of a balance between power and consistency. But I will point out Marrakech does play faster than Bucharest on television. And based on just actually watching the events in Marrakech, it does feel like the court has a little bit of extra kick on some of the shots. So watch out for some topspin. But the point is Marrakech, I do think, will be played at a faster pace than Bucharest by comparison. Now, for the actual odds to win the event here in Bucharest, starting off with the favorites, you have what is, of course, the defending champion, who is back, Darderi, at around 260. Greek Sport defending runner-ups at 5-1. Hanfmann is at 10-1. He did make a very good run in a clay event a couple weeks ago. Then he lost to Darderi in the final, but still, Hanfmann, we know, can be dangerous on clay. Marrakech is at 11-1, not really known for being an amazing clay player, but he has some firepower. Berrettini, former champion, 12-1. Do I trust his durability? Not really, but he is very good on these courts, and we'll see how he looks. Joder, young Spanish guy, is 14-1. Majcik, 14-1. I believe made the semis last year. Medjedovic is at 14-1. Mutet is at 15-1. Hallis is at 16-1. Carabelli, 25-1. Capriva, who is quite good in the clay slate back in Rio, etc., has kind of struggled a bit lately in challengers, but he is at 25-1. Buse, 25-1. You kind of get the point. So for the actual outrights, first of all, do I think Darderi should be the favorite? Hell yeah, he should be the favorite. Defending champion, he is a clay machine. I know he lost in the final to Cerundolo in Buenos Aires, but then we saw him bounce back, and he won a clay title after that. So we know Darderi is a clay monster. His game translates well. The serve and the forehand are very dangerous here, and I think that he has a good path. He's in the same quarter as Hanfmann, so maybe that could be a bit tricky. It's why I'm not taking Hanfmann to win this event. But once again, Darderi, I just think, is the guy to be here. And his clay resume speaks for itself over the last couple of years. So Darderi, I think, will be obviously my first choice here. I will pick him to go back-to-back. He's one of my favorite guys to back on clay. It just seems like he knows exactly how to play the surface, and I do think that has a certain edge that he possesses compared to others, where there's a certain comfort level on the courts here, winning last year, and I do think that he'll be able to do it again. I'll go for him. I found 3-1, so I'll take him there as my first choice. Moving on to the others. Greek Sport, I will not take. Greek Sport, I know, kind of found his rhythm again late in the hard court slate, but still not exactly a great season for him. He's in the same quarter as Berrettini. If Berrettini is on point, then I think that he could definitely lose that matchup. The draw is not that bad, but 5-1 is too cheap for Greek Sport, for a guy that we know can mentally check out at a moment's notice. So I'm going to pass on Greek Sport, not interested at that price point. I'll pass on Hanfmann at 10-1, same quarter as Darderi. Marrakech at 11-1, not really known for being a great clay player, so I will pass on him as well. Berrettini, I thought about, to be honest, because I do think there's upside, but I really don't trust the durability. He looked good in Miami, though. He beat Bublik in straight sets. He won a couple matches, so I understand that when he's healthy, he still looks good, but I don't trust him physically to hold up over the course of an entire tournament when you're playing back-to-back days on clay. So I'm going to pass on Berrettini. If you want to back him, I get it. Not a great draw, though. Has Buse in the first round, has Carabelli in the second round, who can be tricky on clay, Griekspoor in the third. So once again, not exactly a favorable draw for Berrettini. I'm going to pass. If he won, I wouldn't be shocked, but 12-1 is too cheap. I'm going to pass on him there. Joder, I think, is good. I don't trust him enough. Not enough sample. I'll pass at 14-1. Marrakech, I think, is pretty good on clay. I don't think he should be 14-1. I think he should be longer. Medjedovic has some firepower, but not interested at that price at 14-1. I will take a guy who has never won before. Completely different play style than Darderi, but he is in the same half of the draw, which is not ideal, but he's crafty. And I do think that Moutet could be interesting at 16-1. Will he win it? Probably not. But I think Moutet does have a very unique game. He has a lot of great feel on the courts here. He can hit with topspin. He can frustrate his opponents with his variety. I think 16-1 is not bad for a guy with definite upside. He has a bye, then either Vukic, probably Vukic in the second round, who's not good on clay. Same immediate half as Majcik and Cerundolo. That's JM Cerundolo. They play against each other in the first round. So I do like the fact that Makic and Cerundolo play against each other, and I think Moutet could potentially feast on the scraps there in the quarterfinals. But I understand Darderi probably beats him, but I do think Moutet with that quarter is actually not really looking that bad with this draw. And I think 16-1 for a guy, when he's clicking, can be quite dangerous on clay. So for that reason, give me Moutet at 16-1 as my second choice for this tournament. But same exact game plan as Bucharest, basically taking one favorite and one medium long shot, and we'll go from there. Moving on to Houston, which is the, in my opinion, dumbest clay event of the entire year, because it's really not clay. I know it technically counts as clay, but it's really, it doesn't play like it. I'll put it that way. So for recent winners, Brooksby won against Tiafoe. Just listen to these finalists on clay, and you'll see what I mean. Brooksby beat Tiafoe on clay. Brooksby is not known for being a good clay player. Shelton beat Tiafoe. Shelton's not known for being an amazing clay player. Did give Alcaraz a run for his money in the French Open, but not exactly known for his clay success. He won a title here. Tiafoe beat Etcheverry. Etcheverry we know is good on clay. But Tiafoe's made the final 3 straight years in Houston. And the final before Tiafoe Etcheverry was Opelka versus Isner. Once again, Houston is not real clay. Keep that in mind. So if you see a clay specialist, I remember, I think it was Oliveira played against, I forgot who he played against. Was it Blanche, I think? Was it Blanche in qualifying? It was Blanche. Blanche beat Oliveira in qualifying in 3 sets. Oliveira is a full clay guy, and Blanche has basically never played clay in his entire career, and Blanche won in 3. So once again, it's not really clay. So don't blindly take the clay specialist here. That has not worked out, historically speaking. Brooksby with really no clay success won a title here. Tiafoe made the final 3 straight years. Opelka played Isner in the final here. Treat it like a semi-hard court. That's my advice. Treat it like a slow hard court. That's the advice I'd go with here. But moving on to the actual outrights to win the event, a lot of Americans in the draw. So keep that in mind. Shelton at 250. Paul at 350 off the brutal loss to Fees in the quarters in Miami. Tiafoe at 8-1, 3-time defending finalist. You have Nakashima at 10-1, Mickelson 11-1, Tien at 12-1, Etcheverry 12-1, Brooksby at 18-1, Popperin at 22-1. You have Viejo at 25-1, who's a very solid, underrated clay player in the challenger circuit. But once again, this is not real clay, so I'm not going to take him. Kovacevic at 28-1, Bosavaretti 35-1. You get the point. So for the actual outrights here, should Shelton be the favorite? I would say yes. Shelton did win the title here a couple years ago. His draw is favorable, has a bye, then Pennington Jones or Zhang. Same quarter as Brooksby, so that could be a bit tricky there because Brooksby's proven that he is dangerous on these Houston courts. I will take Shelton, though. I think the draw is fine. I think his serve will play well here, and I think he's the best player in the field in terms of talent, so I'll go for Shelton, former champion, at $333 as the best price I found as my first choice for the event here in Houston. Moving on to Paul, I will not take him here. I don't trust him enough We saw it against Fees. We saw it last year against Brooksby in this event. He's just a serial choker. Like, I just don't trust him to ever win matches he should win, and it seems like he always falls apart. So for that reason, I'm going to pass on Paul. I don't like the odds enough. Is the draw good? It's fine. Same quarter as Echeverry, but I don't trust Paul mentally to win these tough matches on a regular basis. So I'm going to pass on Paul. Don't like that price. So moving on to Tiafoe at 8-1. It's going to be a bit of a joke because I understand that Tiafoe has been a very overrated player in my eyes over the last couple of years, arguably his entire career. I'm very anti-Tiafoe. I don't think he's as good as people think he is, but he's been quite good this season. Made the final in Acapulco, did lose in the final to Caboli, but still a good run there. I do think that Tiafoe should be worth taking at 8-1 when he's made the final in 3 straight years. Former champion, made the final in 3 straight. I think his draw is really not that bad. Kovacevic or Chikata in the second round. Mickelson, Wong, Popperin, or Kipson would be his opponent in the quarterfinals. It's really not that bad of a draw. Same half as Paul as well, but I do think that Tiafoe has some value at 8-1. It sounds disgusting, especially coming from me, but I do think for a 3-time finalist to be 8-1, I think it's a good price. So give me Tiafoe at 8-1, even though I expect it to blow up in my face at some point over the course of the event. And I will go with Echeverry at 14-1. He did win a title, so the streak, the drought is over. Echeverry is finally an ATP champion. Deserved. I always thought that he was the best player on tour to never win an ATP title, not counting Fokina, because Fokina is a generational case of a talented guy, top 15 caliber, who's never won a title. So Fokina's in his own category. Echeverry was always number 2 in the world in terms of never winning a title, but being very good. And now he won a title. So now that the monkey's off his back, I do think that Echeverry should have looked good here. He did make the final here a couple years ago, losing to Tiafoe in the final. But he's comfortable here. He's good on clay. And most importantly, he finally got the mental block out of the way. He did win a title. I think 14-1 is a good price. Do I think Paul would beat him in a head-to-head matchup? Maybe. But I think Echeverry has more than a fighter's chance in that matchup. And I think that he could beat Tiafoe as well in a rematch of the final that we saw a couple years ago. 14-1 is a good price. I think that he can play well here. We've seen it. He's got a good serve as well. Give me Echeverry at 14-1 as my third choice for Houston. So once again, my outright picks for the 3 events for the upcoming week. In Bucharest, we are going to go with Baez at 6-1 and Navone at 13-1. For Marrakech, we have a pretty similar game plan, 1 favorite and 1 medium long shot. Darderi, defending champion, and Moutet at 16-1. So Darderi 3-1, Moutet at 16-1. And last but not least for Houston, we did go with 3 outright choices and not 2, so a bit different here. We have Shelton, former champion, at 333. We have Tiafoe, former champion, at 8-1. And we have Echeverry at 14-1 as a former finalist and a very recent clay ATP champion. But a reminder once again, Houston is not real clay. Don't treat it that way. Houston's going to piss you off if you treat it like real clay. So keep that in mind. But either way, those are my outright picks for the upcoming events. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks for matches in the first round. Before we get into the actual picks for the lock and dog, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, Rhythm, official data tool for dominating the madness of college hoops. Rhythm continues to crush in college hoops. Plus, you can also check them out for baseball, a lot of MLB projections for sides, totals, and props. If you want to check it out, premium version, go to the app, use the code SGPN25. We download the app for a nice discount and get a quarter first month. If you use the code SGPN25, check out Rhythm, promo code SGPN25. Reminder, we're also brought to you by Novig, America's #1 prediction market for sports. So check out the great prices they have, lots of reduced juice, and download the app. Great sign-up deal. Get $50 when you spend just $5 if you use the code SGPN. Check out Novig, promo code SGPN. And last but not least, check out Merch Madness, SGPN merch store. We have a discount going on right now. 15% of everything in the merch store with the code MARCH. So check out the merch store once again. Promo code MARCH for 15% of everything in the SGPN merch store. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished going through the preview of Bucharest, Houston, and Marrakech. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the log going to Marrakech, I am going to go with the matchup between Bousset and Berrettini, a rematch, actually, of a match that we saw a couple of weeks ago. We're going to go with Berrettini, team total over 12.5 at -140. Now, for this one, Berrettini has been good in Marrakech in the past. Last time he was here, he won the entire thing, but he was a bit of a tie-break and 7-5 magnet over the course of that title run. He's gone over this team total in 4 straight in Marrakech. So a reminder, if you actually were listening to this podcast a few years ago, we were blindly taking Berrettini over 12.5 games in every single match, and he kept winning in straight sets while going over. So I do like the history here. Berrettini's proven that he can definitely serve well while also hitting crazy forehands, but not a great returner on these courts. And that should result in what could be at least one long set against Bousset. Now, Bousset is also a marathon man. 8 of his last 10 matches have not ended in straight sets. So Bousset can also force a third set, and we saw that happen as he beat Berrettini in 3 sets a month ago or so in Rio. So I do think that Bousset is a marathon guy who can definitely, I'd say, catch Berrettini sleeping in a set, or at least for a few games, and make Berrettini work for a set to win 7-5 or 7-6. But the fact is, Berrettini, in this event, which he won, he did have a bunch of long sets in that title run, even against bad servers. So Berrettini's return game's not great. The serve's very good. The forehand's great. I think he'll win, but I do think that Bousset can keep at least one set close. Give me Berrettini, team total over 12.5 at -140 as my lock for the show. For the dog, I'm gonna actually stay in Marrakech. I'm gonna go with the matchup between Cerundolo and Majic. I'm gonna go with the over 22.5 games at +102. I see a very, very competitive battle. 4 of Majic's last 5 matches at this event had a 7-5 or 7-6. So I said before, he made the semis last year, lost to Greeksport in a competitive straight set loss there. But still, the point is we've seen a bunch of long sets from him in this event, and I do think that it's an overall, I'd say, common theme here in Marrakech. It is a little bit more fast-paced than other clay events, and there was a lot of topspin and a lot of kicks. So keep that in mind. But Majic's had a bunch of long sets here, and Cerundolo has been a marathon man as well, kind of like Bousset, who I just mentioned a second ago. 5 of his last 6 matches have had at least 23 games. Cerundolo and Majic have a lot of rally tolerance, a lot of variety. Cerundolo can hit the topspin with the forehand, of course, being a lefty, and Majic has the variety. But I think you're looking at what could be a very competitive matchup that maybe goes 3 sets. But I don't see much separating these guys. I think that Cerundolo is alive to win it, but I do think that it will be competitive either way. So I'm going to go with the over instead as the safer option as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock and dog picks. The lock's going to be on Berrettini. Team total over 12.5 at -140 against Bousset. And for the dog, give me Cerundolo and Majic. Once again, that's JM Cerundolo against Majic. Over 22.5 games at +102 as my dog for the show. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again for the quarterfinals in Bucharest and in Marrakech. Houston, we might have to punt because there will be some night matches since it is in America. So there's a chance we're going to have to punt on Houston. We'll see. But either way, we're back definitely for Bucharest and for Marrakech. Till next time, good luck to all of you. And